How's it going, guys? I'm Robert from Machado Visuals, and Rotolight sent me their Titan X2, which I've been pretty keen on checking out. It's pretty comparable to the SkyPanel S60, which I use all the time in my work. For on-location interviews, RGB panels have pretty much become my go-to for its versatility in matching ambient color with a decent amount of output. Rotolight sent me the rental kit variant, which includes a flight case, a clamp for mounting your power supply to the stand, and a set of barn doors. To start things off, this thing looks like a Lamborghini. It has a glossy finish with a really clean user interface. Build quality is super solid with handles on each corner of the fixture, and there are 3 control knobs in the middle similar to a SkyPanel with the addition of a few extra buttons and a touchscreen for easy menu navigation. You have all your basic color modes including CCT, HSI, XY, and RGB, and the touchscreen is actually pretty useful when dialing in your color. There are 10 assignable presets per group, which can be used to quickly recall different settings for different looks. One of my favorite things about the Titan is its strike time. It's nearly instant when compared to the SkyPanel, which sometimes feels like forever. And this isn't a huge deal, but it's something I definitely appreciate. The barn doors are also super handy. It is a lot harder to cut and shape panel lights because they're inherently softer, but it's still very useful when controlling spill. They're super easy to mount and just as easy to remove. All the usual lighting effects are present, and I actually prefer them over the SkyPanel. There are a lot more parameters available to adjust and really fine-tune the effects, which you just don't find on the SkyPanel. It's also a lot easier just to access. Simply push on the effects button and you're ready to go. Speaking of effects, this light can actually be triggered as a strobe for still photography and is compatible with high-speed sync flash, which is really cool because you have full RGB access within a strobe. None of my professional work includes still photography, but this is a nice option for anyone that's a hybrid shooter. In terms of connectivity, it supports Bluetooth, Lumen Radio, DMX, a built-in Electron Skyport receiver for flash, and an RJ45 port. This is another plus towards the Titan. It features built-in Lumen Radio for wireless DMX, while the SkyPanel requires an additional $500 Skylink module. One of the key features that this light offers is variable diffusion that Rotolight is calling Smart Soft Diffusion. It's actually a pretty neat concept and works similarly to electronic variable LEDs found in Sony cameras. The front panel is naturally opaque, and as an electric current is introduced, it becomes more transparent. Now, this doesn't actually make the light any softer, contrary to what other people have been saying online. It mainly affects spread. Since the actual size of the light remains the same, its softness doesn't really change. To demonstrate this, I set up the Titan as a key light with 100% and 0% diffusion and metered to the same intensity. As you can see, there isn't really a perceivable difference in terms of quality of light. Think of the diffusion sort of as a spot flood control on a panel. With 0% output, you get max output with a more concentrated beam angle, and as you add diffusion, then you can see the spread increase and intensity drop. This is particularly useful when I want to decide between spread versus output. I'll prefer using a wider spread when I want to evenly fill a frame of diffusion, while I'll prefer more output when I'm battling against bright windows. The Titan X2 is an RGBWW light, meaning that it has the normal set of RGB diodes as well as a warm white set of LEDs and a cool white set of LEDs. This automatically gives the Titan a slight edge to the SkyPanel, which is only RGBW, but what does that mean in practice? Alright, let's talk photometrics. I did a side-by-side test alongside the SkyPanel from 3 meters and compiled my data into this spreadsheet, and to help decipher this, here's what I was looking for. First, I wanted to measure each light at commonly used color temperatures to measure CCT accuracy and delta UV tendencies. This is also helpful to see how the built-in Smart Soft Diffusion affects color. Overall, the Titan with 0% diffusion shifts the light ever so slightly cooler with a tiny bit of magenta. All of my CCT readings had a difference of less than 100 degrees Kelvin, which means the light is extremely accurate when calculating color temperatures. Now, I want to note here that I took these measurements using an older firmware version, and in the most recent firmware version 2.0, there is improved CCT accuracy across the range of diffuser settings, so you might even see more accurate results when updated. Second, I wanted to measure luminance levels to compare output. Now, the light is brighter than a standard SkyPanel, but only when set at 0% diffusion. When you add an intensifier to the SkyPanel, you can expect about a half stop more than the Titan with 0% diffusion. Keep in mind here that the SkyPanel intensifier is another $350 accessory that you have to purchase, while nothing else is required with the Titan. Third, I wanted to measure the light's TM30 score, which is what I use to gauge overall quality. A lot of manufacturers like touting their CRI and TLCI scores, but those metrics are super dated and not a great indication of how well a light actually produces color, so I generally tend to ignore these. The Titan's TM30 fidelity scores were remarkably consistent and only slightly dropped at 10,000 degrees Kelvin. The Gamut Index, which scores color saturation, were even more impressive, scoring a perfect 100 across many of my most commonly used color temperatures. So TLDR, color rendition is quite excellent, and the Titan is definitely brighter than a SkyPanel with 0% diffusion. If you want to access this spreadsheet to see the numbers for yourself, I've left a link in the description. Now, I want to go over some of the things that I still think leave room for improvement, and these sort of start to compound one after another. And the first is the mechanism for mounting the power supply is definitely not my favorite. It's the same wing style mount you find on the Kino Flows, and the problem is that I often just find myself feeling for a lock. Sometimes I get it on the first try, and other times I spend about 10 seconds just searching for the receiving pin. I really prefer the Airy Super Clamp style because it works like a side load quick release. With that system, you just drop in the bottom and the rest latches in place. I usually like mounting the ballast onto the fixture itself for a more self-contained fixture, and it's something I often do with SkyPanels, which brings me to my next point. The cable included in the rental kit isn't long enough to leave the power supply on the floor. It does include a clamp to mount onto the stand, but I like having the ability of leaving the ballast on the floor if I want to. Speaking of the floor, the SkyPanels have a support foot on the fixture itself, so it's easy to line up a stack of SkyPanels. If I'm dealing with multiple panels, I'll sometimes run without cases to conserve space on the truck or throw a couple onto a cart, and the support foot on the SkyPanel makes it really easy to keep the panel upright. The Titan, however, is really difficult to set down because the power supply really throws off the balance since there's no support foot. You can reposition the yoke as a stand to help support the light, but that kind of defeats the purpose of a smaller self-contained setup. Also, the cable ports lead toward the bottom of the fixture, so if I'm setting the Titan down, I'll position it upside down just like a SkyPanel. Rotolight actually has a photo on their website of a Titan resting on the floor in the proper orientation, but I feel like that would add a lot of strain to the cable, which leads me to my next point. I haven't seen a way to flip the screen orientation in the menus, meaning that if I'm using the Titan on the floor, it's pretty difficult to change settings since the entire display is flipped. Now, speaking of controls, I really miss having the SkyPanel remote functionality. I use this all the time when the light is set really up high on a combo stand and I need to adjust settings. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Titan does have built-in lumen radio, so you could use wireless DMX to control the light, but that's way above my pay grade, and I really like the simplicity of a small tethered remote. Another accessory I received in the kit was the Honeycomb Grid, and it works as expected, but it does not inspire a lot of confidence. To be honest, it feels a little flimsy and has a tremendous amount of flex. I might be a little nervous if I were to send this out on rentals, and I already have a few small dings just from dropping small items onto it. The SkyPanel Honeycomb, on the other hand, is super solid and has plenty of rigidity. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the flight case. The case can fit all of the accessories, including the barn doors and Honeycomb Grid, but you have to leave those accessories on when storing inside the case, which means I generally have to take everything off when I pull it out on set. This is why I really like the Tenba SkyPanel case. It's a little bit wider and a little bit thicker, but it leaves ample room for extra accessories without having to leave everything attached inside the case. For a rental house, the included flight case is probably a great option, but for an owner-operator with extra accessories, I might look into something else. I'm actually probably going to order a second Tenba to store the Titan. This one's more of a personal preference, so your mileage might vary. All in all, I still really enjoy using this light because at the end of the day, the light's photometrics and colorimetry are what matter to me, and for over half the price, the Titan X2 is pretty hard to beat. I spent about 10 grand total on my SkyPanel package, and you can get into a Titan rental kit for just under half that, so it's a pretty easy recommendation if you don't require brand name gear. If you appreciate my content here on YouTube, consider checking out my Patreon where I post longer form BTS videos and other industry tips that have helped me along the way. Apologies for the lack of videos lately. Work has been coming in waves for me and seems to be picking back up, which I'm really grateful for, but things are finally slowing down, so I'll have a bit of time to jump back on the YouTube horse. I actually just finished upfitting my camera van, and I'm super stoked to share that progress with you. If you have any questions on this video, obviously feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.